Stock futures are uncertain as we go into a week where nobody knows what's going to happen with the COVID 19. We look at the current caseload and possibly some deaths that we saw over the past week due to the virus. And there's some shuffling moving around in the Democrat Party. So we'll look at what's going on with there. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. No, your eyes are not deceiving you right now. This is not Ed Talk, this is Contemporary. I am going to have to go back in and change the title after the fact here because it seems that the Restream robot is having problems here. I have no live chat over here on the monitors either, but I've got my old phone, my current phone, and my tablet sitting down here with the stream monitors on, so I will still be able to look down and write down your names at the end of the stream, so fear not. Chat away, you will get called out on Friday when I give a shout out to everybody who took the time to watch this program. As long as you chatted in the chat, because otherwise I have no idea that you were here. But we have got a lot to get to today. This has been quite the day. So let's get down to it. Let's start, of course, with Investors Business Daily because that's where we always start here. This is from Ed Carson over at IBD. Dow Jones Futures, can stock market rally as new coronavirus cases fall? Amazon, AMD lead 6 stocks to watch. Dow Jones futures were little changed Monday morning along with S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq futures erasing overnight losses. A strong stock market rally attempt began last week despite Friday's pullback. A $2 trillion stimulus package should help, but the coronavirus recession is just getting underway. Because, as I keep saying more and more, every time we sit here and talk, there's no place for people to spend their money. You have to remember, there is no place for people to spend their money. And that is going to cause big problems as the market goes along. Coronavirus cases in the US and worldwide continue to soar, but new COVID-19 cases declined on Sunday in the US. Italy, many other European countries, and worldwide all showed significant slowing in the percentage gain in new cases, though America's is still very high. For now, it's still a coronavirus bear market. Investors will be looking for follow-through day to confirm the new stock market rally. Keep an eye on Amazon, Atlassian, DocuSign, RingCentral, Advanced Micro Devices, all of which have formed bases amid coronavirus bear market. Also watch long-term leader Microsoft, which is holding support at its 200-day, 40-week line. Amazon stock, Atlassian stock, DocuSign stock, RingCentral stock, and AMD stock all have best possible 99 IBD composite ratings. Microsoft stock has a 98 composite rating. Crucially, all these stocks have relative strength lines at or near record highs, meaning they have been outperforming the S&P 500 index. Stocks like Amazon, AMD, and Microsoft with strong RS lines in a bear market are likely leaders in the next stock market rally. Meanwhile, Tesla, GM, and other automakers will release monthly or quarterly figures this week amid plunging sales and factories shut down. Several key economic reports are due, including ISM Manufacturing Index and the jobs report for March, but the most timely will be the weekly jobless claims data Thursday after initial filings surged a record 3.28 million in the latest week. So nobody knows what's going to happen here, and I don't even know what's going to happen here. Given the fact that nobody had a place to spend money other than a fast food joint, a grocery store, or their bills for the last couple weeks, the stocks did go up last week to a point where I was quite surprised by it. But I mean, if we opened everything up and people could go get their hair cut, their nails done, and go buy a car, this would be a lot quicker as we went along. So let's see what CNBC has to say. Stock market live updates, futures volatile, Dow's best week since 1938, Trump extends guidelines. This is from Pippa Stevens, Jesse Pound, and Yoon Lee over at CNBC. So this is a live blog, check back for updates. And of course, we'll read through, I think the top 4 we'll read through quick. 8:04 a.m., stocks exposed to COVID-19, slump in pre-market trading. Companies with outsized exposure to the novel coronavirus and its spread slumped again in pre-market trading Monday after the number of U.S. cases jumped again over the weekend. Cruise line companies, Carnival and Norwegian, dropped 10% and 9% respectively. American, Southwest, and United Airlines fell 6%, 4.4%, and 8.1%. Expedia and car rental company Hertz dropped 0.6% and 0.5%. The Expedia, I can understand because nobody's going anywhere right now because we're on lockdown. But the car rental, well, I suppose because nobody's traveling, they don't need to rent a car. 8:02 a.m. Alphabet rises on BMO upgrade. Shares of Google parent company Alphabet rose more than 1% in pre-market trading on Monday after BMO upgraded the stock to outperform from market perform. We expect our mega caps to be popular upon rebound, and we think there are important relative fundamental differences that nudge Google to outperform territory. BMO analyst Daniel Salmon, wow, it's an early morning, folks, said in a note on Monday. The bank said it favors Alphabet over Facebook for the company's higher exposure to larger enterprises, as well as its YouTube subscription business, which is benefiting from consumers staying at home. Yeah, I wonder how YouTube Red is doing. I never thought that was a good idea from the start, but it goes along with something Styx has been saying for a long time, that Google is trying to turn YouTube into its own Netflix, and I don't think it's going to happen. It's not ThemeTube, it's YouTube. It's you put the videos up, or you guys consume the videos. Thank you all, by the way. For those of you who are over on that platform. Let's see. BMO kept its 12-month target of $1,400 on Alphabet, representing 26% gain from Friday's close of 11.10. 7:51. Abbott surges after approval of 5-minute test. Shares of Abbott, which is a medical supplies company, rose 10% in pre-market trading after the company received an emergency use authorization for its new coronavirus test. The test is designed to deliver positive test results within 5 minutes and negative results within 13 minutes. If you didn't get the positive in the first 5 minutes, would that not mean negative? I don't understand why it takes longer to get the negative test result. That's a little weird. I guess that's why I'm not in medical engineering, because I don't understand. The company said it plans to ship the test to some healthcare providers this week. 7:48 a.m., and we'll move on off of this one. The U.S. economy at a standstill, satellite imagery shows. The coronavirus pandemic has brought U.S. business and consumer activity to a halt, with every sector feeling the effects of most of the country's workforce staying home. With few official measures available to gauge the scope of economic damage, satellite imagery and alternative data show the widespread effects of the current nationwide isolation recommendations. The U.S. situation is stark. Airplanes are parked on unused runways. The busiest highways are empty during rush hour. Resorts have become ghost towns. Ports are seeing sharp drops in shipping activity and more. This is from Sheets. And absolutely, they are. And on my botched Ed Talk on Saturday, which I apologize to everybody who watched that because I was way out of it and I should not have tried to go live that day. But I knew I had a schedule and I promised the day before that we were going to be there at 5, so that's why I did it. But I should have taken a nap and put it off for a week. We're going to try again next week. We're going to have 2 Ed Talks in a row because you guys deserve better than what I put out on Saturday. But I did manage to talk about the fact that given what we see from telecommunications and telecommuting in general, we may actually start to see some of these roads clear up. And this may be a permanent thing, and that would be a good thing. People can get to work on time, spend some more time with their family. They don't have to be in the car for 2 hours on the way to work and 3 on their way home. So they can spend more time with the family. Because a lot of these people don't necessarily need to be in the office all the time. Now, of course, when everybody is allowed to go back to work, you are going to see some of the traffic start to pick up. But I don't think it's going to start to pick up back at the level that it was. It'll pick up, of course, but not to the level that it was by any stretch of the imagination. And that'll be a good thing. And like I said on that day, I think that a part of this might lead to a little bit more of a traditional household with people realizing that they can work from home. So they don't have to give up the kids and put the kids in daycare in order to go to work and still be able to buy the house, have the two income house, and things like that. So that's something to watch. I'm actually interested to see how this turns out for the American people. So next we're going to look at the caseload for the COVID here. I've got the Google front page, which I believe is taking off the CDC. So right now in the world, we are at 734,063 confirmed cases with 151,789 recovered and 34,822 deaths. And people are saying that this is leveling off, which I could see that to an extent. The United States has 142,410 active cases, 4767 recoveries, and 2505 deaths. That seems a bit high. Italy, 97,689 with those are active cases, obviously, with 13,030 recovered and 10,779 deaths. But I want to look at China here because total China's had 81,470 cases. 75,000 of those have recovered and 3,300 of those died, which I call bullshit on all of that. I call full unadulterated bullshit on that one. Just because they were locking people down and this was spreading like wildfire. They're either not testing or they're not reporting to us, and it's China, so I'm going to lean on the latter for that. But, oops. I hope that didn't transmit too far through the sound system there. I apologize for bumping the microphone. No, China's caseload is way higher, and I mean there's some tinfoil hattery going around there, but I mean other things are happening. Like 1 million people dropped off of their state cell phone service. I don't know if they just clean the rolls or if that's just the number of people that don't have cell phones anymore. In the United States, New York shows 59,648 cases. No recoveries, 965 deaths. California shows 6,197 cases, 33 recoveries, 129 deaths. Let's look at a couple of these other ones. Looks like New York is the epicenter, followed by New Jersey. For the most part, everything else falls off after that. Washington, where all of this started and the first deaths happened, 4,483 cases, 201 recoveries, and they lead in deaths at 200. I'm sorry, they don't lead in deaths. They're second in deaths because New York leads in deaths at 200, rather. Where's my state? Wisconsin, 1,154 confirmed cases, 17 deaths. So we've got a kind of a cap on this right now, which we're kind of spread out in agrarian, so that's understandable. Minnesota is actually showing good recovery numbers. I don't know if they're just testing and finding a lot of people that have recovered off of this or not, but Minnesota seems to have the best recovery numbers, especially, no, I think that actually might be not even by volume, they just have the best. Minnesota has 503 confirmed active cases, 252 recoveries, and 9 deaths. So whatever they're doing something right. Anyway, we'll move on from that. So, given the fact that, of course, now we see that China has had most of their cases recover, according to the news reporting and what they're giving out to the world here, this is from the Daily Caller. Chinese markets reopen and they still sell bats, dogs, and cats. If Ron Helton is watching here, I hope the bat soup icon comes up. I don't know if he's watching or not. This is from Kyle Hooten. Live animals are still for sale in Chinese food markets that reopened after the country recently declared victory over the coronavirus. Cages full of cats and dogs are waiting for slaughter, and the unsanitary preparation of animals is again reportedly a common sight in Chinese food markets, often called wet markets, according to in-country correspondents and with the Daily Mail. China ordered that its wet markets would be shut down in January after facts emerged suggesting that the coronavirus was first transmitted to humans via bats and other live animals sold in often filthy places of commerce, according to Business Insider. However, now that China says it's beaten the virus, the markets have seemed to resume business as usual. The markets have gone back to operating in exactly the same way as they did before the coronavirus, said Daily Mail correspondent, who observed the markets reopening. Don Guan? Is that how you pronounce that? The only difference is that security guards try to stop anyone taking pictures. No way! Which would never have happened before. Another correspondent in Guilin, a city in southwest China, photographed a sign advertising bats, snakes, spiders, lizards, and scorpions for sale as remedies for common illnesses. Images have also begun to circulate on social media of traditional Chinese foods considered odd by Western standards for sale in the newly reopened wet markets. CNBC host Jim Cramer tweeted out a video of live scorpions for sale. So, they've either actually beaten this, which I highly doubt, or they had a serum for it already because it was engineered, which I don't have any tinfoil sitting. I actually should put a roll of tinfoil right here for times when I come up with ideas like that. Or they don't care about their people anymore, which it's China, so that's pretty obvious. So now we've got the stimulus check news here, so let's talk about what happened there. This is from CNN Politics from Kristen Holmes. Treasury Secretary says Americans can expect stimulus checks to be direct deposited within 3 weeks. Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said Sunday that Americans could expect checks from the historic $2 trillion stimulus bill to be direct deposited in their accounts within 3 weeks, but experts have determined it could take longer to receive the money. Congress and President Donald Trump enacted the stimulus bill last week to address the dramatic economic crisis caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Included are direct payments to many Americans, an unprecedented expansion in the unemployment benefit, and $350 billion in small business loans. Mnuchin told CBS's Face the Nation that there will be a web-based application for those who don't receive direct deposit to give the IRS the necessary information. It's not clear how long it would take the agency to send out all the money, but it would likely take weeks before the first payments start going out. Mnuchin said last week that the IRS would begin issuing payments within 3 weeks of the legislation being signed into law. The bill simply calls for payments to be made as rapidly as possible. But experts say it could take longer because it's the federal fucking government and they take forever to do everything. In 2001, it took 6 weeks for the IRS to start sending out rebate checks under a new tax cut. And in 2008, it took 3 months after a stimulus package was signed into law. However, many Americans could see their payments sooner than in the past. More people now file their tax returns electronically and provide the IRS with their bank information. These taxpayers will likely receive the money faster. Mnuchin noted that his number one objective is now delivering to the American workers and American companies the needed money that will put this economy in a position where it gets through the next 8 to 10 weeks. On Sunday, Mnuchin also had a message for small businesses. Go back and hire your workers because the government is paying you to do that. So, that's good. Because now I know I'm not going to get it because I changed banks after I filed my taxes last year. And I don't believe I gave them direct deposit information anyway. But yeah, I changed banks after that, so I'm not even going to get the physical check. Which is going to rob me of the fun of cutting it out into the shape of a middle finger and sending it back. But hey, at least I'm not contributing to the inflation here. I'm doing my part. I just think of that meme from Starship Troopers whenever I think of that. I'm going to get that. I'm going to put that up on Twitter later. See if one of the deplorable Batcave guys can get it for me. So I'm stepping outside of my usual NewsGuard restriction here because I wanted to talk a bit about Massey. This is from Just the News. Trump, throw Massey out of Republican Party over coronavirus bill. If Massey objects to the legislation on the voice vote, it would prompt a recorded vote. And I'm actually okay with. I've given this a lot of thought over the weekend, and I'm kind of okay with what Massey did. I'm even okay with the fact that AOC wanted to do the same thing. I'm actually kind of okay with this. It seems like it's the right thing to do. But let's see what Just the News had to say about that. This is from Nicholas Balassi. President Trump called for Representative Thomas Massey to be thrown out of the Republican Party over his objections to voting on the $2 trillion stimulus bill with a voice vote. Looks like a third-rate grandstander named Thomas Massey, a congressman from, unfortunately, a truly great state, Kentucky, wants to vote against the new Save Our Workers bill in Congress. He just wants the publicity, he can't stop it, only delay, which is both dangerous and costly, Trump tweeted on Friday. Workers and small businesses need money now in order to survive. Virus wasn't their fault. It is hell dealing with the Dems. Had to give up stupid things in order to get the big picture done. 90% great win back House, but throw Massey out of the Republican Party. The president also posted on Twitter. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is putting the record $2 trillion stimulus package up for a voice vote on Friday, which doesn't require a quorum. Massey posted a screenshot of the Constitution on his Twitter account Thursday and wrote U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 5, Clause 1, quorum requirement. He also wrote, the Senate did some voodoo just like with Obamacare, took a House bill dealing with taxes, stripped every word, put their bill in it. The House is just as responsible for killing the origination clause as the Senate. It's the House's job to reject the process. So, I am okay with this, and I know why AOC wanted to do it. Sorry, I had something in my eye there. I know why AOC wanted to do that, because she wanted campaign ads out of it. She wanted everybody's name on this bill in a public record, so because she thinks this is all going to blow up in everybody's face. She also wants to see everybody who voted against it, because this is a massive government spending plan, and she's never seen a spending plan she doesn't like. She wanted the name of everybody who voted against this so she can run campaign ads against them and try and get them either primaried if they're on her party or voted out if they're not. And I think Massey wanted to do the same. Massey wanted everybody's name on this so they could run this and say, hey, this guy tried to help you. This guy didn't try to help you. This lady wanted to see your family suffer in squalor. He wanted names on this. This was a political thing. But also, it puts it onto record and it's official. So, I mean, we don't have to rely on just shouting matches like we usually do with the government. We actually have documentation with this. I like the idea that it happened. And I like the idea that they actually had a vote on it. I'm actually a bit disappointed that the Senate decided they wanted to just do a voice vote and have it go unanimously. So I am okay with what Massey did because it's the right way to do things. There's a process in this country for a reason. Now, one of the things that I do want to point out, and something that people have talked about throughout this, is the fact that we have technology right now that not everybody has to be in the Capitol building to vote anymore. We could set up the technology where they could vote from home if possible. They'd have to have regular security measures in there to make sure the 8-year-old kid isn't voting on stuff or anything like that. But the technology is there for all of us to telecommute. And, I mean, you see it from not CSNBC. It's not CNN. What is the one that's always in? C-SPAN, that's the one I'm thinking of. You see it from C-SPAN when they're voting. It's just a little machine that they have in there that's got yay or nay. It's recorded in there. So, I mean, you can replicate that technology at home, especially when you're sitting in a pandemic like this, where you've got several congressmen sick, several senators sick, or at least asymptomatic and self-quarantining. To bring them back to the Capitol puts them in contact with other geriatric politicians, which can also get sick. And I don't wish death on any of these people. I wish some of them would retire, but I don't wish death on any of these people. So, to keep them safe would be the best thing for them. Let's find a way for Congress to telecommute. That way they can be there, they can represent their constituency, and still volunteer and do things for their own districts. Then you can really tell who's actually doing things for the district, who's actually in the district, and who isn't. That's also another good thing that goes along with this. So that's coming here. Let's see what Anthony Fauci had to say. This is from CNN. Fauci says Trump agreed not to invoke a strict quarantine after intensive White House discussions. This is from Nikki Robertson and Devon Cole over at CNN. Dr. Anthony Fauci said Sunday that President Donald Trump decided not to impose a strict quarantine on parts of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut after officials had very intensive discussions at the White House with the president last night. Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, said on CNN's State of the Union that it was important not to enforce something that would create a bigger difficulty and instead issue a travel advisory for the New York metro area. After discussions with the president, we made it clear and he agreed it would be much better to do what's called a strong advisory. The reason for that is you don't want to get to the point that you're enforcing things that would create a bigger difficulty, morale, and otherwise, when you could probably accomplish the same goal, Fauci told CNN's Jake Tapper. Fauci said about 56% of the country's new infections are coming from the New York City area. After the number of reported U.S. coronavirus deaths doubled to more than 2,000 within 2 days, officials are advising residents of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut not to travel domestically. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued the travel advisory Saturday, urging residents of the 3 states to refrain from non-essential domestic travel for 14 days effective immediately. The states would have full discretion on implementing the advisory, which exempts employees in critical fields. So, you can't imprison people in a city any more than you can imprison people in any other way without due process of law. It's right there in the Constitution. You have the right to due process. And before you're imprisoned, you have the right to be tried by a jury of your peers. Now, I understand the concept behind this, and that's why I'm glad that they went to a strong advisory rather than an official lockdown quarantine, because that would be depriving millions of people of their due process rights. They can choose what to do. They're free to do what it is they want to do and face the consequences for it. And the same thing with people traveling into the New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey area. They're also free to do what it takes to do what they feel like doing and suffer the consequences for it. So it works both ways off of this. Now, yes, I understand the fact that if somebody from the Bronx goes out into a bar in Kansas and infects the entire state of Kansas because of it, those people didn't accept the risk of having the guy from the Bronx in there and infecting them, but there's a bit of freedom that comes with that as well. And alternately, the fact that this is blowing up in New York City kind of makes me wonder about what's going to happen with the coronavirus as we go forward into the future as well, because we looked earlier at the caseload, and California's, even though they're pretty much living right on top of each other, just like they are in New York City, tall buildings, skyscrapers, full of apartments, thickly settled areas in the Los Angeles area, they're not seeing quite the caseload that New York City is, because it's flu season in New York City. People are getting these symptoms anyway. They're going out and getting tested. I'm sure there are a ton of asymptomatic variants out there, and a lot of them are going to be in California, or like a lot of people are suggesting, the heat, the dryness, or the humidity, but just the heat off of this is killing off the coronavirus as well, because you're not seeing a lot of this down in that warm area in the American Southwest. You're seeing it mostly in places like New York, where it's cold and crappy and rainy. Here it rained nonstop for the entire weekend. The sun just came out a bit ago. But you're in those seasons right now where it's easy for things like the flu and a coronavirus, which acts like the flu, to manifest themselves in people. I wonder, and I can't prove any of this, but I wonder if once it gets warm, a lot of this isn't going to go away. It'd be interesting to see what happens with this. But speaking of things that are going on in New York, let's see what de Blasio had to say. And I actually got this from Moody Redhead over on Twitter, so thank you to Moody Redhead for providing me with this. New York City may close churches. Actually, did I get this from Heather or Moody Redhead? I think I got this from Moody Redhead. New York City may close churches, synagogues that don't comply with the coronavirus orders, de Blasio warns. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio warned Friday that the city could shut down certain places of worship if people continue to violate the state's stay-at-home mandates and continue congregating for religious services there. A small number of religious communities, specific churches, and specific synagogues are unfortunately not paying attention to this guidance, even though it's so widespread, de Blasio, a Democrat said at a news conference on the coronavirus outbreak. City officials have continued to work rigorously to control the spread of COVID-19 as cases climbed over 1,000 on Sunday, despite statewide closures of schools and non-essential businesses. I want to say to all those who are preparing for the potential of religious services this weekend, if you go to your synagogue, if you go to your church and attempt to hold services after having been told so often not to, our enforcement agents will have no choice but to shut down those services, he added. The warnings came just weeks after or before Easter on April 12th. De Blasio promised to take additional action up to the point of fines and potentially closing the building permanently if worshippers do not comply. Well, there's two parts to this. Number one, people have religious liberty, and they have liberty in general. Now, of course, you've got the state laws that you can put down and crack down for the safety of the American people. I understand that well, but especially trying to do this on a religious standpoint because he is specifically pointing at churches and synagogues. People have the right to worship without government intervention. The government cannot set up a state religion. They can't stop people from worshiping. Atheism cannot be a state religion either. So, for de Blasio to do that is basically to take the Constitution and wipe his ass with it. But the other side of this, of course, is, some of these churches and synagogues have come up with massive congregations, which is a safety risk in something like flu season or the coronavirus. Whereas, he's not stopping worship. He's stopping worship in the big congregational sense, not congressional sense. What was it the Lord said? Wherever 2 or 3 come together in my name, there I am with them. So there's nothing to stop families or even a neighborhood from coming together and just having a small little service for Easter. Other than the fact that there isn't somebody ordained to be the minister over it, which they would have to figure out within the laws and rules that go along with their particular denomination or religion. They would have to figure out what goes along with there, but they can gather in small numbers and read the message. The message hasn't changed for 2,000 years. It's written in a usually black book that most families that are religious keep in their house. So there are other options to this as well. But still, the fact that a governing official is trying to say you can't worship really, really strikes me as a big problem that needs to be addressed. So thank you, de Blasio, for that. And thank you, I didn't think I read out the author's name, Vandana Rambaran. Thank you for that article. And we move back over to CNN. This is Pelosi on Trump's coronavirus response as the president fiddles people are dying. This is from Chandelis Duster. So she wants to make a Nero reference off of this. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Sunday criticized President Donald Trump's response to the coronavirus pandemic, saying his denial at the beginning was deadly and that as he fiddles, people are dying. We should take every precaution. His denial at the beginning was deadly, Pelosi said in an exclusive interview with CNN's Jake Tapper on State of the Union. As U.S. cases surged, Pelosi questioned whether Trump was informed about the coronavirus and his knowledge on its potential impact. I don't know what the scientists said to him. When did this president know about this, and what did he know? What did he know, and when did he know it? That's for an after-action review. But as the president fiddles, people are dying, and we just have to take every precaution. Asked by Tapper if she believes Trump's downplaying of the crisis has cost American lives, Pelosi responded, "Yes, I am saying that. Because when he made the other day..." Is that typed right? Is that actually how she said it, or is that an editorial mistake? Because when he made the other day, when he was signing the bill, he said, just think 20 days ago, everything was great. No, everything wasn't great, she said. We had nearly 500 cases and 17 deaths already. And in that 20 days, because we weren't prepared, we now have 2,000 deaths and 100,000 cases. Early in the outbreak, the president downplayed the extent of the possible damage from coronavirus, but in recent weeks, the White House Coronavirus Task Force has sharpened the national response, forcing in part measures to get medical equipment to states and hospitals. After the number of reported coronavirus deaths in the U.S. doubled to more than 2,000 within 2 days, officials are advising residents of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut not to travel domestically. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention issued the travel advisory Saturday, urging residents of 3 states to refrain from non-essential domestic travel for 14 days, effective immediately. So, I want to point a couple things out, because you haven't been hearing them enough already. Trump was kind of on top of this from the beginning. Of course, he didn't want the people to panic and riot, so he downplayed it in his speeches, so people got a sense of calm from this. But he also went ahead right in the beginning and put a travel ban on China while this was developing over there, because there were so many things that were coming out from over in China. Get our people home, get them back over here and safe, and don't let anybody else come in from China. And they called him a racist for it. And of course, telling people to prep meant that people were going to call you a conspiracy theorist and a prepper and all sorts of other nasty things that nobody in this society want to be associated with for whatever reason. I mean, during the Great Depression, everyone learned how to can, and they kept cellars lined with stuff that they had taken out of their gardens. But yeah, if you bought an extra carton of eggs or an extra thing of toilet paper or any extra food while this was still developing over in China, you were called a conspiracy theorist and a prepper. Trump was on this from the beginning, and most of his followers were as well. But they called him a racist and a conspiracy theorist and a bigot for it. And yes, now that we're getting to this point, now they're saying that he didn't handle it enough. They tried to goad him into not handling it, and now he didn't handle it enough. So, no, he was on top of this from the beginning. But this is an airborne virus that has asymptomatic variants, so people can be carrying it and transmitting it without ever knowing that they ever had it. And until we get a test for the antibodies for this, we will never know how many people actually had it and who is safe to return from the workforce because they have the antibodies in their bodies to protect themselves from this. So, thank you, Pelosi, for that, and thank you, Shandelis Duster, for that article. Let's see. So, there was another hot take that went off of this, and I do believe that this was the 4D chest to get people talking about this as well, because I can't see any other reason for doing this here, especially as somber as he's been. But I know that he does tend to get the media twisted up in a bunch just for saying things. As coronavirus death toll rises, Trump focuses on a different set of numbers, TV ratings. This is from the egregious Brian Stelter over at CNN Business. The rapidly rising death toll, the projections of additional potential deaths the week ahead, the length of time until the expected peak, the death rate, the number of confirmed cases, the number of people who have COVID-19 symptoms but haven't been tested, the number of 911 calls in major metro areas like New York, the staffing levels at area hospitals, the number of available beds, the number of additional beds that may be needed, the current count of ventilators, The supplies of PPE, the capacity levels of local morgues, the unemployment rate, the length of time that social distancing measures remain in effect, the modeled death toll if the restrictions are eased. That's what Brian Stelter says are numbers that matter right now. Numbers that don't matter right now, television ratings. That's why it was so disgusting to see President Trump bragging about the ratings for the White House's coronavirus task force briefings, talking about ratings while people are dying and others are pleading for help. It is beneath any human being. I said on CNN Newsroom that members of Trump's inner circle need to intervene and help him get out of his own way. But I'm not holding my breath. Trump launched into an anti-CNN tirade during a Sunday afternoon presser, claiming that the network is not trusted anymore and that people are not watching CNN anymore. Again, let me say, TV ratings don't matter right now. Viewership is up across the board. But networks are wary of publicizing the numbers for the same reasons they didn't tout their record ratings after 9/11. I'm not going to get into all the specific metrics, but for the purposes of fact-checking the president's lie, the month of March has been CNN's most watched month since September 2005, when the Gulf Coast was recovering from Hurricane Katrina. As an anchor and correspondent, I feel the pressure. I know our ratings are well above average right now. People need reliable sources that aren't minimizing or overstating the threat. That's why we have to keep going. That's what we have to keep doing, rather. That's something the president should encourage, not seek to destroy. So, yes, I mean, we're looking at these press briefings have Super Bowl level numbers because people are looking to the president. And look at the poll numbers. I mean, look at what Gallup did. 49% average approval rating from Gallup. And the RCP average is starting to tick up just the same. He's above 47 on the RCP average at this point. And 51% of Americans, this was something that was running around Twitter and people were screaming about because they don't understand what a sample size is. And some of them are figuring out what a sample size is for the first time because they realize that under the impeachment, 53% of Americans wanted to see Trump gone, even though it was a 1,000 person survey. And now they complain about the fact that 51% of Americans think the president is doing a good job. And they're seeing the survey sample size for the first time. And they want that Corona Bucks check because they need to eat. They need to pay their bills. They need that little bit of extra money. They're looking to see what's going to come out of this. And I haven't watched any of the briefings. I probably should be watching them, but I haven't watched any of them. But the narrative is dying. And of course, because he goes out and he touts it out on his Twitter, now they're just, I mean, these people sit and watch the Twitter for something to come out that they can run out and report on. And meanwhile, while, other things are going on in the background, things are being approved, and another stimulus is coming up, all they can talk about is the fact that Trump said something about his ratings on Twitter. He's playing these people like a fiddle. And I don't care about the ratings. Like I said, I don't watch the briefings. I'll read transcripts of them after the fact, but I don't sit down and watch any of the briefings or listen to them live or anything. It is interesting, though, to see what what people are putting out for these. So Chuck Todd had a different take on this when he was talking to Joe Biden. This is from Fox News, Joseph A. Wolfson. NBC News anchor Chuck Todd raised eyebrows Sunday morning when he asked if President Trump had blood on his hands for his delayed response to the coronavirus outbreak. During an interview with former Vice President Joe Biden, Todd pointed to the Democrats' campaign messaging on the pandemic, which says a failure to take aggressive action could cost lives. Do you think there is blood on the president's hands, considering the slow response, Todd asked, or is that too harsh of a criticism? Even Biden, who's been critical of the president throughout the crisis, thought the question was a little too harsh. I think that's a little too harsh, he said. I think he should stop thinking out loud and start thinking deeply. He should listen to the health experts. He should listen to his economists. Biden added that there should be laser focus on implementing the massive financial relief bill passed by Congress to help struggling businesses and families, which it had already passed by the time Biden had said that. The Meet the Press moderator faced backlash on social media for asking the question on the long-running Sunday morning show. Tim Russert would never ask a question like this. Even Joe Biden didn't take the bait to assist a viral moment attempt. The Hill media reporter Joe Concha said, referring to Todd's Meet the Press predecessor. And, I mean, Biden is absolutely right on this. Biden has been on point, on and off, since he came back into the media. Of course, he has his usual gaffes, but he has been on point with this as well. Stop the bickering, stop the fighting. Everybody get along so we can come out through this together. I've been a little impressed with Joe Biden over the past couple days here. So, but I mean, yeah, it does seem like Chuck Todd is feeding that rage bait. He's trying to give that extra shot of heroin into the people because he wants to get people angry at the president so he can report on it, and it drives ratings. It's disgusting a little bit. I do a little bit of that too, and I'm disgusting for it too, but I mean, for the most part, yeah, he's just trying to get that rage going here, and this isn't the time for that. And we will actually be watching the clip itself on Ed's World later on tonight, so make sure you come by and check that out here. Let's see, what else do we have here? I look at the monitors here. You guys are busy in it. Is my actual chat working? My chat is working too. That's up. That's good. So now we have to go into some sad news here, and I'm gonna stay off the tinfoil for this because I've seen this as just a bit convenient, but we're not going to talk about that today. But what we are going to talk about is the fact that country music industry reacts to the death of legendary singer Joe Diffie has passed away, and it appears to be complications from the coronavirus. This is from Fox 17 Nashville, Jason Hall. Country music legend Joe Diffie has died at age of 61 from complications of coronavirus. Atkins publicly announced Diffie's passing in a press release on Sunday, 2 days after the singer revealed he tested positive for COVID-19. And many of Diffie's peers and the artists he influenced, as well as others in the country music industry, share the condolences after the news broke of his passing Sunday afternoon. And we see a lot of Twitter quotes here. It looks to be about it for the article. I thought there was more text into this, so he's definitely influenced the music that I did, the music I've played and sang. I really enjoyed some of his music as well. So John Deere Green is one of my cousin's favorite karaoke songs. So yes, the world will be a worse place without Joe Diffie. We also have Maria Mercader, CNN journalist, dies at 54 of the coronavirus. This is from Teresa Waldrop over at CNN. CBS News producer and talent executive Maria Mercader died of COVID-19 in New York Sunday. CBS said she was 54. Mercader worked at CBS for 3 decades, getting her start in the network's Page program, CBS said in a release. She most recently worked as a director of talent strategy. She had been on medical leave for an unrelated matter since late February, the network said. Mercader courageously fought cancer and related illnesses for 20 years, enduring numerous treatments and surgeries, CBS said. To her colleagues and family, she was an inspiration and a symbol of hope each time she returned to work after the latest medical setback threatened to end her life. So it looks like she had been actually struggling with some underlying stuff for a little while here, but my condolences to the family of Mrs. Mercader as well. That is a terrible thing to lose, and I mean, I've had my reservations with CNN, but you still don't ever want to see anybody have to suffer and die for something like this. So one more story here. This was brought to my attention over in the Discord server, which if you guys are not in my Discord server, go ahead and get over there. I've actually got a section here where you can put your articles in and I'll review them. I've actually got a separate channel. It's a private channel where I will pick the ones that I'm going to read off the air, but absolutely head on over there, get your articles in. The link is in the description below on YouTube and DLive. There's nothing on Twitch, or it's above you over in the Facebook group. There's a channel for you to leave the articles in there, and like I said, I'll look over them, and if I do use them on the air, I'll give credit where credit is due for pointing it out to me, as you heard earlier when I credited Moody Redhead. And I've got another story that I got to talk about that she brought to my attention tomorrow, but I need to get a couple more sources on that before I can say, yes, I want to cover it or not. But this is from the Washington Free Beacon. Kennedy Center tells musicians it will stop paying them hours after $25 million bailout is signed. The National Symphony Orchestra will stop receiving paychecks on April 3rd. The John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts informed members of the National Symphony Orchestra that they would no longer be paid just hours after President Trump signed a $25 million taxpayer bailout for the Cultural Center, according to an email obtained by the Washington Free Beacon. Nearly 100 musicians will no longer receive paychecks after April 3rd, according to an email from the orchestra's COVID-19 Advisory Committee. The COVID-19 Advisory Committee was broadsided today during our conversation with the Kennedy Center President Deborah Rutter. The email says, Ms. Rutter abruptly informed us today that the last paycheck for all musicians and librarians will be April 3rd, and that we will not be paid again until the center reopens. So what was that $25 million for? That's what I need to understand. What are they doing with that money? Because I was to the understanding it was to make sure that the musicians were still getting paid because that was what they wanted. So I don't know what happened there. I'm kind of blindsided by this as well. I'm sure everybody else in the Kennedy Center is as well. So I've got a couple more articles I want to talk about here. This actually was brought to my attention from Alex Thompson over on Twitter, and then I followed up with it with Warren's own website. On March 27th, Alex Thompson tweets, New, Warren launches a separate candidate committee she's calling Warren Democrats per email blast, plus the FEC filing with longtime ally. Paul E. German as treasurer says the committee will also support other Democrat candidates who share our vision, mobilize people. So I followed up on this, and there wasn't a lot of information for this, but we got to a point now where Warren's own website is talking about this as well. So this is from ElizabethWarren.com about Warren Democrats. Warren Democrats are voters, candidates, and leaders who believe in the power of bold, inclusive reform to root out corruption in government and put power in the hands of people. Right now, that means working to ensure we put people first in solving the coronavirus outbreak and the economic crisis in the short term and rebuilding our economy in the long term. We will not only work to re-elect Elizabeth to the Senate, but we will also support Democratic candidates who share our vision, mobilize people to support those candidates and these ideas, and continue to build the grassroots movement that Elizabeth Warren inspired. I hate to tell you this, people, but Elizabeth Warren had the furthest thing from a grassroots candidacy. Elizabeth Warren banked money off of her Senate run, which she didn't have to do anything for because it was Massachusetts. She bankrolled money off of that, and then went out and told all of her wealthy donors from that Senate race that, okay, just stick with me here, but I've got to denounce you on the campaign trail. I've got to denounce you because it's going to be my image, but don't worry, I still like you guys, and I'm still going to take your money. I just can't do it right now. She was using money off of her Senate run from 2016? She was using money off of that run to finance her presidential campaign, because she can't use it for personal use. So, yeah, she was the furthest thing from a grassroots candidate. We believe this crisis is urgent and a transformational moment for our nation. We can't wait until November to begin delivering solutions for people who are hurting right now. And our work doesn't end in November. These solutions we advocate for now can and should have a lasting impact on our economy and our government. America can come out of this crisis stronger than before, but only if we rally around candidates like Elizabeth, who support bold solutions rather than temporary fixes and short-term deals. As we've already seen, the crisis has put a spotlight on a number of existing structural issues, how our federal government operates and who it will work for, the fragility of an economy that is skewed against working people, and the importance of universal health care and paid leave, not just in times of crisis, but in our everyday lives. We need to fight for the pandemic relief measures we desperately need today, and to make sure we elect Democrats up and down the ballot to see the crisis through for working families. We are building a powerful organizing network to do just that. To that end, Warren Democrats will help elect Democratic candidates who share Elizabeth's vision for big structural changes and support bold reform as a response to the crisis. 2. Help power the fight at the federal and local level by organizing together to push for the solutions we need right now and for bold, popular grassroots economic and government reform in the months to come. 3. Mobilize grassroots supporters to ensure Elizabeth Warren remains as a powerful national voice and is reelected to the Senate in 2024. So she would have been elected into the Senate in 2018, not 2016. I apologize. So, this is just... Elizabeth Warren formed a PAC. I don't know if it's going to be a super PAC or not, but she formed a PAC because she wants to fund people that fit her vision, which means, of course, more internal turmoil inside the Democratic Party. They can't unite behind anything right now. And I mean, you see some of this on the GOP side as well with the Groyper movement, which completely fell apart, and the Trump Republicans and the super Christian conservative GOPers, and of course the business class of the GOP as well. You see a lot of this. The libertarian movement was, for the most part, aligned with the GOP last year. Now they won't even go near a GOP candidate. You see some infighting in the Republican Party, but for the most part, they're united behind keeping people like this out of the government. People like Elizabeth Warren need to be kept away from the reins of power or anything like that. But the Democrat Party is just so fractured, and this is just another fracture into this. We can either have the super communist, progressive, whatever the hell that Bernie Sanders is and the DSA is, or the old guard Democrats like Joe Biden, or maybe even, God forbid, a John F. Kennedy Democrat, somebody like that. And then you've got to have this hybrid, and that's Elizabeth Warren, who came out at the end of a debate and said, "I think you called me a liar on national TV." This can't go anywhere good, except for possibly crushing the Democrat Party to the point where they reassess themselves and get these progressives out of there and away from them. That's what the Democrat Party needs to do. So now we've got a couple more articles here based on what the infighting going on in the Democrat Party between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. So this is from New York Magazine, The Intelligencer. This is a natural interest article from Jonathan Chait. Why can't Bernie accept that Democrat voters didn't want him? From the moment he announced his candidacy, Joe Biden led in polls of Democrat primary voters. His lead endured through months of bad press and worst Democrat debate performances. He lost his national lead very briefly after crushing defeats in two overwhelmingly white states, one of them a low turnout caucus, only to regain it again after African Americans voted for the first time in large numbers, at which point he has led by commanding margins. The Bernie Sanders movement has mostly accepted the finality of Biden's victory. Why hasn't it come to terms with its causes? The Sanders campaign and many of its enthusiasts continue to see Biden's victory as either a fluke or a plot. Sanders' advisors told the New York Times they believed they had been on the precipice of sweeping to victory on Super Tuesday until Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg dropped out and endorsed Biden. Ben Tolchin, a Sanders pollster, claimed that the candidate was on the brink of winning until the most unprecedented event in the history of the presidential primaries occurred. It is hardly unprecedented for the 5th and 6th place candidates to drop out of a race after 4 primaries, yet Sanders himself has fixated on this decision as evidence of an establishment conspiracy. Appearing on ABC's This Week several days later, he described it as the power of the establishment to force Amy Klobuchar, who had worked so hard, Pete Buttigieg, who had really worked extremely hard as well, out of the race. From Bernie's perspective, dropping out of a race once you have no chance of winning is peculiar behavior that can only be explained by the work of a hidden hand. For most politicians, though, it's actually a standard operating procedure. Only Sanders seems to think the normal thing to do once voters have made clear they don't want to nominate you is to continue campaigning anyway. Sanders' campaign spokesman Mike Kaska argued because of the agenda that he's putting forward, a lot of super wealthy forces are aligned against him. But Sanders has enjoyed a wide spending advantage over Biden, who at the key juncture was operating on a shoestring budget. If Michael Bloomberg had won, it would have been fair to wonder if he had bought the nomination. Biden's appeal to the electorate was authentic, not purchased. Yes. Yes, keep fighting with each other. Keep going after each other. We're going to see this progressive movement stripped and crushed and kicked out of the party. But it's a good thing to see. And Twitter's not real life. That's something that everyone needs to understand. Twitter is absolutely not real life. But, it's overrun. Twitter and Reddit are overrun by people that think that Bernie Sanders is the Messiah and he's going to lead them out of despair and out of their parents' basements into a life of economic prosperity, the backs of crushing their corporate overlords. And they actually believe this here, but most of the Democratic Party doesn't want to vote for Bernie Sanders. He has never been a Democrat. Not only that, Bernie Sanders has railed and rallied against Democrats from the first time he took office. He caucuses with them because they share a similar message, but, they're scum to him. He thinks that they don't go far enough. They're corporate buyouts, and he's done nothing but badmouth Democrats and Democratic voters until he wants their vote so he can take over their party. And it's interesting, of course, he's never sat in the Senate as a Democrat, but yet he wants to run for the presidency as a Democrat. If he wants to be the president that bad, run third party. No, I'm dead serious. Run third party, and then you will see exactly how strong your movement is. So, yeah, and of course, like I said, you go on Twitter and you see all the Bernie bros out there think that this is just some massive conspiracy against Bernie. And it might be. The superdelegate system was put in place to keep people from Bernie from rising to the top by promising more free shit than everybody else. That's a quote from Six Hexenhammer 666, and it's dead accurate. A lot of people on the GOP side complain about the superdelegate system, but for the most part, that's what it's there to do. To keep somebody like Bernie Sanders from making it up to the top by promising more free shit than everybody else. It's not right. And it definitely goes against the idea of democracy that the Democrats try to push out, but it is there for a reason, but they don't even need to use it this time because Biden, despite everything else that he does and the Me Too allegation that we talked about on Friday, is still pretty well poised to be the nominee with the actual number of delegates that he needs, not a contested convention, not a brokered convention, and not anything else like that. He can just go out and get his 1991 and clinch the victory. So the last thing that I have comes from, looks like Current Affairs is the name of the publication. I've never heard of these people before. Death to the Economist is their tagline here. Everything has changed overnight, so this is a Bernie-heavy idea. This is from Nathan J. Robinson. We do not live in the same country that we did a month or two ago. It may look the same superficially, but everything has turned upside down. The stock market has suffered a more sudden crash than in 1929. Millions of people have lost their jobs overnight, and the healthcare system is being strained to the brink by a devastating global pandemic that has the potential to kill people in horrifying numbers. Americans are being advised to shelter in their homes for an indefinite length of time. The chart of new unemployment claims on the front page of today's paper is astonishing. And like I said last week, yes, that's astonishing to see all of those unemployment claims come at once. But remember, we had more unemployment under the 2008 crash. It was just spread out over time. This is the government told 3 million, or 3, what was it? 3.28 million people that they couldn't go to work anymore, and wonders why we see jobless claims go up. And they told them all the same thing, pretty much all at once. The states kind of congregated together. Within a few days, most everybody was on lockdown. And yes, you're sitting here wondering why these all came in at the same point. In this topsy-turvy world, there's only one issue on everybody's minds, the virus, along with its consequences. Nearly every news story is about it, and everything else is set aside for now. We know that without an indefinite lockdown, the virus could run rampant with devastating consequences, but without a strong social safety net in place, an indefinite lockdown will lead to massive income losses. Donald Trump is about the last person you'd want in charge during a crisis, and his behavior has been downright criminal. He lied to the public by repeatedly implying the virus's seriousness. That was being exaggerated for political reasons. It was. Suggesting it was no worse than the flu. In most cases, it isn't. And promising that, like a miracle, it would disappear. That is also not true. He's lied to people about whether they could be tested. Anybody that needs a test gets a test. We're working on that around the FDA and its massive red tape. Against the opinions of both public health experts and economists, he has told the public he wants to have churches open for Easter services. No, he said he would reassess. And suggested that lockdowns are doing more harm than good. They are. As people begged Trump to invoke the power of the state to compel ventilator production, he instead opted for protracted haggling over prices with private companies and said that hospitals were asking for far more ventilators than they really needed. He has even reportedly denied medical supplies to states based on petty grudges. I'd like to see the evidence for that. With Trump's incompetence already having caused needless deaths and probably about to be responsible for many more, and his administration having made it clear that their main interest is protecting corporate profit, not American lives, he should be hated. His approval ratings have tanked, yet it hasn't. It's actually risen, and most Americans approve of the way he handled the crisis. Since he has handled the crisis in an objectively abysmal fashion and is killing people's loved ones, you may find it puzzling, but it isn't really. Trump has been on television every day talking to the American people, bragging about things he hasn't actually done, promising that everything is under control, touting beautiful new tests and miracle cures, and promising everything will be all right. He has brilliantly slapped his name on some coronavirus advice and then mailed it to everyone in the country. If people just turn on the television or check the mail, and they can do little else right now, they'll see a president who seems to be in command. All right, where was the meat of this? Because there was a point to this. There was a point to this article, but it's not. I mean, of course, it's current affairs, so he's writing a mile-long article to do this. It's all an illusion, but in order to show people it's an illusion, you need an effective on-message Democratic opposition, exposing Trump and offering a clear plan of their own. Unfortunately, Democrats, for the most part, have failed utterly. Their messaging has been muddy, with an early Democratic relief proposal being so unambitious that some Republicans were able to paint it as stingy, and Nancy Pelosi originally defended a provision that would have denied paid sick leave to most people, then scaled it back even further. As Ryan Cooper notes, at a time when congressional Democrats should have been hammering Trump at every moment of the day, they were silent. Yet people were dying because they couldn't get this aid out. There's a total leadership vacuum on the Democratic side. We hear a lot about the bipartisan relief package that just passed, but Democrats need to show that they're in command at a time when Trump is flailing. This they have not done, in part because the party's frontrunner for presidential nomination is Joe Biden, was completely missing in action for the worst part of the crisis escalated. Biden declined to do television appearances or speak to the public, giving the unlikely excuse that he was waiting until construction on a TV studio in his home had finished. Biden's silence meant that Donald Trump was the only national leader people were hearing from. No wonder his approval rating shot up. In fact, that may have been intentional, and with political reporting that Biden was too afraid of being political and criticizing the president during a crisis. I don't think the public wants to hear criticism of Donald Trump right now, said a Biden advisor. Excuse me. This is indefensible. It's like declining to criticize George W. Bush over Hurricane Katrina. Trump is directly causing people to die. Jesus, I can't read much more of this. Yeah, I can't read any more of this. This is some Bernie bro that's pissed off about the fact that Trump is up there shooting up because Biden went and hid in his home for a while. Is what the gist of this was. I'm going to spare you guys from the rest of this article. So yes, the Biden guys and the Bernie guys are just picking back and forth at each other at this point, and there is no unity over there. Trump is going to make it in November unless something very, very serious happens to him, I think, at this point. Because he's taken the coronavirus crisis and he's been able to do... I mean, this whole thing with getting the money out to the people was his idea initially. And they hammered on him for it because, I mean, this was Yang's idea. Now that it's out there, once people start getting this money into their hands, and like I said, Trump is up there giving them the leadership that they need and telling them what they need to hear right now and trying to keep everybody calm so we don't have panic in the streets and people going out and killing each other over soup and toilet paper. He's doing the best he can given the situation that he has, and people see that. And people want to get back to... People don't want to be welded in their homes anymore. They want to get back out and go to work. I mean, I've talked to waitresses and restaurant workers who are just sick of sitting on their hands. And I mean, these people face the public every day for years on end. And now they're just sitting at home doing nothing and wondering where their next meal is going to come from. So he's doing a good job. And I mean, a lot of these people aren't going to vote for him anyway, but for the most part, people are seeing what's happening out here. This is going to be... I think this coronavirus thing really did cement Trump's victory, especially given the fact that Bernie and Biden can't do anything but sit and fight back and forth with each other. So the last thing we do on Monday is we talk about something that restores my faith in humanity. And this is going to be a long show here. This is the longest contemporary we've ever had. So I'm looking around. A lot of people are off work, and a lot of people are getting really depressed from being off work. But it's only been a couple weeks, and we have seen some of the suicide rates go up, unfortunately. God rest the souls of the people who sat fallow and idle, didn't know how they're going to feed their families, or just got bored from work, and the worst thoughts came out in their heads. May God go easy on their souls. I know that suicide is supposed to be an automatic hell-worthy trait or trespass, but may God have mercy on them, because a lot of this didn't come out on faults of their own. What I have seen, however, on restoring my faith in humanity, is I went to the grocery store yesterday just to get a couple things. And I'm starting to see less of the canned goods wiped out because people already went out and panic bought all of them. The mac and cheese you can go out and get again, which I talked about on the show, was wiped out completely the other day. I think the sale might have had something to do with that, but also people wanted the quick and the easy stuff that they could throw on the stove and either feed the kids or feed themselves with. But this past week I went in, and first off, distilled water is gone, which, given the fact that I keep carnivorous plants and you can't use tap water for them, kind of pissed me off, but it's what people said they needed. Cleaning supplies were wiped out, which I understand. But flour was wiped out. A lot of other base ingredients were wiped out too, which tells me that when these people are sitting home, they're not just sitting and watching Netflix forever, which you would think that that's what they would have done, especially my generation. They love their Netflix. They love to just sit and binge, and I mean, you hear them talk on Twitter, Facebook, etc. If they had the chance, they didn't have to go to work, they would just sit and binge the Netflix all day, but they're not doing that. I mean, they can't go out to eat, but they're actually taking they're going out there, trying their hands at not just whatever quick and easy box meal that they were taught that they could do when they were younger. I mean, that's what we grew up on, was box meals. They're actually going out and they're making things. The flour aisle was wiped out, which means they're baking. They're trying to try new things, making their own bread. Maybe it's because they can't trust the bread that's on the shelves, or maybe it's just because they want to try it out. But yet, if I gone down the yeast area in the supermarket, there wouldn't have been any yeast either. All the sugar was pretty much wiped out. So yeah, people are trying to do things on a regular fashion at this point. They're trying to do things the old way. I made butter this past week, and a lot of people were impressed. A lot of people asked me how to do it, which is really easy, by the way. You put cream in a mason jar and you shake it. That's all you need to do. But I made some honey butter and some garlic butter as well. But I mean, some of these old world ideas are coming back, and some of these old world values are probably going to come back with it. Wouldn't it be amazing if, I mean, this is a pandemic crisis, but wouldn't it be amazing if some of these old world values came back to people because they started to realize what a home life was and the other things that they need to do to try and keep things going like that? I think that would be amazing. The fact that so many people are trying to do things the old world way, to try to do things from scratch again, is going to change the way that we do things, and it's really going to inspire a new generation of chefs, of bakers, and of other service economy items. We're going to see a lot more of that coming up here. A lot of more local things and a lot less importing things from around the world, especially foodstuffs. You know, you can import Lipton meals from China or Europe or something else. A lot of those aren't made in the US. Some of them are, some of them aren't. You can import the box dinners or you can make them yourselves. I'd love to see a lot more of that. I'd love to see a lot more staples and a lot more home cooking because I think it would make the world a better place. And that is what restores my faith in humanity. So, with that, I think we're going to call it a show. We will be back here later on tonight with Wyatt Birkenhoff from the Freedom Scoop Media Group. Come over and check him out over on Ed's World. And we will be watching the Chuck Todd video. I've actually already got it downloaded and cut down, so I just have to add it over to OBS so we can watch it here. So make sure you're over here to check that out. It looks like the live chat worked, so I won't have to rely on my devices over here. I'll go ahead and get everybody's name written down for today. Thanks everybody for talking and pointing everything out. We'll see what you all had to say today, and maybe we'll use some of it for tomorrow. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.